Leave
Hello,
me.
friends. You ever listen to the Robcast? Like Rob Bell's
Yes,
podcast?
yes.
Yeah. Hello, friends. I don't know if he still does that.
I don't know. It's been a while.
Welcome to ADD Masterminds. I'm Bridge Live What?
I'm the girl.
Bridge Live What and the girl. Yeah. I confuse people with the whole Bridge Live What thing. Like I keep getting like these emails from people that are like authors and they're like, I'd like to be on your podcast. And then I'll reply and I have like my signature from work that says John
Oh
Howie.
yeah. No, like
And so
not
now
not
I've like
you.
started putting John and then in quotation marks, Bridge LeVoit
What?
Howie. And so hopefully that's less confusing.
I mean, you confused me for a good long time, and then I was like, "Oh, that's not his name, and that's not who he is. He's an actual person." It took a bit.
So like we didn't like know each other when I switched to Bridge LeVoit, hey?
I think I think the first time I saw you, you were Bridge.
Oh,
Unless I followed you and didn't pay enough attention, and then you
yeah.
switched over.
It was
But
Johnny Howe before.
I was like, who's this weirdo? And it turns out you're a cool weirdo. So
Well, and now like we have that whole Twitter exodus. I guess we'll just have to dive into Twitter
sure.
now. But we have that whole like Twitter exodus that's happened and they're trying to like bring, Christian weird Twitter onto
Mm.
Facebook. And
Oh, okay.
so, yeah. And so like there's, people reaching out and adding people to this group, which is I guess kind of a private group.
Okay.
But so somebody reached out to me and added me, and I'm like, oh, people aren't gonna know that I'm the
That you're
same
Bridge.
person.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. And so it's like I've sent like Facebook like friend requests to like a lot of people, and they're like, I don't know who this is. And so like I totally get it. So, but
Oh,
I don't
that's
know.
funny.
It's just kind of fun to separate my online persona
Yeah.
from my real persona.
I have such a hard time with that. And that was one of the big things that really got me off Twitter. Like my account is still there.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ever going to use it again.
Yeah.
But I couldn't leave stuff behind. It was really bugging me. I was telling Twitter stories like they were real life. And I know
Yeah.
that they're real people for the most part, but like I don't know, I was complaining to somebody that I work with, and I was like, somebody called me this and said that, and they were like, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, who said that to you? That's terrible." And I had to think about it and go, I don't know who said that to me. Like it wasn't even somebody I follow. It wasn't somebody that follows me. In my head, I can't come up with any kind of username or a picture. It's
Yeah.
like, no, I don't know who said that to me. And I don't know why I can't leave that and just go, that's stupid and block and like move on. And I'm just not healthy enough to do that. So it just seemed like the
Yeah.
better idea was just to go, you know what? I don't need it. I miss it for a couple of things, especially just knowing it's really easy to catch up on what's happening. I miss like the trending page of like what's going on
Mhm.
or just searching really easily and getting a summary, but it just it wasn't worth it. And then, everybody was going, there was a whole bunch of blow ups. I was like, I don't need this. I'll leave the door open just in case, but for now, it's just not worth the headache.
So have you found it's like a lot better not being on there?
I It's been actually a little challenging, and
Yeah.
I'm confronting like my own ego with how funny I think I am with like I'll think something and be like, "Oh, I'm going to tweet that." And I'm like, "No, I can't." And then
Mm,
I was walking my dog thinking like, "Oh, I'm going to tweet that." No, I can't. And then just that, "Oh no. If I have this thought and I don't share it to like what 400 people, it's not that who even reads them anyway. If I don't get those
yeah.
6 likes, is it really that funny? Did it really happen?"
Mm,
Not like I had an audience, but it's weird to just be like, no, my thoughts are just in my head now. That's weird, and just I miss it. It's tough, but I think it's getting a little bit easier.
hmm. Your thoughts are just in your head now. Like for
Yeah.
me, it was like because like I take that like social media Sabbath every
Sure.
Sunday. And so for me, it's like when I have something, I'm like, oh, that's a funny thought or that's a deep thought. I'll
Okay.
just add it to my notes app and
Okay.
use it later.
Oh,
But
is that you do like you've done like dumps? I feel like you'll get, and then I'll get like a bunch of tweets in succession. That's got to be your like, oh, these are the things I thought on Sunday, like dumps. That makes sense. I did notice.
Yeah, or I'm just, I don't know. I get into this pattern where my brain just does that.
Okay.
It's, yeah, maybe a sign of mental illness.
Who knows?
I'm working on it. I'm working on, getting into therapy and stuff. Cause I think like the biggest thing for me is boundaries and
Mhm.
learning how to be willing to inconvenience other people. I hate
Okay.
inconveniencing other people. I'd rather just adapt to things.
Okay.
And I think that results in a certain amount of resentment, maybe. And I think
Mm,
that's how I was acting out on my troll account, is there was
mm,
resentment. And I mean, like, I never would attack somebody who's vulnerable. Like
okay.
it's more, I was trying to attack people that deserved it, which
Okay.
is a messed up thing to do too.
Sure.
It's like I was trying to bully the bullies, right?
Mm,
And it's like, and that doesn't help things. And
right.
I found that like getting rid of that has made me have to confront people as Bridge LeBois. If I really need to say something to someone, I'll confront them as Bridge LeBois. And I've also realized that that's also can become unhealthy too. And I'm realizing like if somebody says something that's like awful and I give my pushback, and they'll never respond to it anyways, or their
Hmm.
followers will respond and it'll get
Mm,
nasty.
mm,
It's like, I don't know, this isn't beneficial at all.
yeah.
And so I'm getting better too at using the mute button because I'm like,
Yeah.
I just feel like there's people, like there's a difference between talking at each other and having a conversation.
Yes.
And I'm
Yes.
realizing there are people in my life that just want to talk at.
Hmm.
And those people I'm currently muting on Twitter because I'm
Okay.
like, there's no point in us continuing this conversation
Mm-hmm.
because like I have no interest in being like you.
Mm.
And you clearly have no interest in being like me. So why
Yeah.
are we even talking back and forth?
There's the difference between the people who want to have a conversation and the
Yeah.
people who want to make a speech. And I feel like 90%, if not more, is just no, I just want to make a speech about it. I don't want to actually connect and share, just want to project.
Yeah, and I mean it was interesting too because like there was a there's like one of those militant kind of atheist people, which I think when I was a lot more conventional in my faith, they would have really bothered me. But I mean, they posted some passage that was like really messed up, right?
Okay.
And I was just like, yeah, I can't explain that. I don't want to explain that,
Right.
but I still believe in God.
Yeah.
And so we kind of went back and forth, as to what that looks like. And yeah, I mean, I think
Mhm.
the other thing too is that like, and I don't know if this is a toxic trait or a healthy thing, but I'm like, I refuse to defend myself. I'm not going to like defend my character
Mhm.
against someone else. I'm like, my character should speak for itself. And I think it stems from, I like this. I'm just doing my own psychoanalysis here.
Hey, go for it.
I think it stems from like, I read this book called The Road to Character, and it really shifted the way I look at ego. Um, and it's like the greatest generation, which I love. I don't know why we romanticize them so much, but they were just
Right.
like they went through a lot of stuff,
Sure.
and they're they had a lot of wisdom, and so kind of that mentality that they were raised with was don't talk about yourself, and
Mm.
and so like George W. Bush, or no, George H. Bush, when he would do like speeches, his mother would like
Yes.
listen to his speech and be like, George, you were talking about yourself again.
Yeah.
And so he would always like get his speech writer to cross out anything that referenced I.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, I
Bold.
love that notion that it's like, I don't talk about myself. I let other people talk about me if they're going to talk about me. And so
Okay.
if people are going to go out there and accuse me of horrible things, I like to think that I carry myself in such a way that people aren't going to believe that anyways.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, that's what you have to. You know, you can't control how you're perceived, but only how you're presented. And if you're presenting yourself well, you know, no one's going to believe this BS that comes out from somewhere else.
And I think
In
that's
hopes.
really, yeah. And I think more than anything else, like without getting political, Jordan Peterson.
Hmm.
Jordan Peterson was a guy that I found so intriguing at first, you know, because he was like a psychologist that was talking about the Bible in terms of like archetypes and stuff like
Mm.
that, and like what we can learn. And like at one point he said something so brilliant. It was kind of like he said that there are like black and white truths, like the world is round or
Sure.
gravity. Like those are things that we
Yeah.
can articulate well. And we
Hmm.
can just say that's a fact, that's not a fact. And then he's like, but there's like kind of like dreamlike realities, like things that we can't totally grasp. And he's like, for that, we need art to illustrate.
Mm.
And I was like, that is so
I like that.
brilliant. But the moment he got on Twitter and he just started defending himself continuously, I saw the kind of person that the Road to Character speaks against.
Okay.
And it's like so much of his Twitter feed was him attacking, you know, because he was being attacked. And
Right.
there was kind
Right.
of a shift that happened in his persona, and his politics has become everything he's against is this. And when he
Yes.
talks
Yeah.
about people like me, he starts assigning, you know, motivations that are not
Yeah.
what my motivation is at all.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's lost me completely.
Hmm.
And it's like people still want to defend him as this great thinker and everything like that. And I'm like, I just don't see it anymore. I saw it at one time, but I don't see it anymore.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's because I've changed too, but
Okay.
it's like whatever it is, it's just like he and I don't jive anymore.
Right.
And actually, this gets me into kind of our first topic that
Here we
I was
go.
going to do, geniuses. I'm
Oh,
like, I think geniuses are overrated.
tell me why. Tell me why, Bridge.
So I was I heard that Chris Hemsworth said that he refuses to work with a genius director ever again. And I think he was referencing Taika Waititi.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, that Thor Ragnar or Thor or whatever, I can't remember what it was called, but
I'm
that
behind
Thor
on all
movie.
of them, so I
You
can't
what?
help. I'm behind on all of them. I
Oh, okay.
cannot help.
Anyways, it was fantastic. It was a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And I love Taika Waititi. But I was like, that got me thinking, okay, so he refuses to work with him. And I'm like, working with geniuses does suck, doesn't it? Because you think about it, it's like we could list other people, um, you know, Kanye West. We could talk about,
Sure.
you know, because people have assigned him genius
Genius.
status. I would say that Elon Musk is another one of those, right? Where it's like he
Mm.
was assigned genius status. And it's like the moment you get assigned genius status, it's like you can't control this person. Like they're a
Okay.
genius. Everything they do is brilliant. So who are you to
Hmm.
question their process?
Yeah.
And it's like, who can work with that? Like you just have to fall in line with whatever their vision is.
Right.
And it's
I
like if
mean,
we yeah,
does too much of any type of power corrupt? I mean, this genius is either artistic or intelligent power, whether you're a tech
yeah.
genius or an art genius, you know, uh, too much money, too much political power. Like, it does, is that all? Is it that too much of any one type of power corrupts, or is that just the type of people that end up in the forefront and go a little crazy?
Well, I think okay, so like yeah, the power is one thing.
Hmm.
And I mean theological power is another one too. It's like, no, you don't understand. I'm a
Hmm.
theological genius. I know I
Right.
cheated on
Right.
my wife or you know, whatever. It's
Yeah.
like, but I need to get back because I have a calling because I'm a genius.
Hmm.
It's like there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah. The power
So
and the
that's
pressure.
yeah, so that I mean that power But I think it's also buying into this identity as being a genius. It's like,
Mm.
is that really the person you want to be friends with? Like, you can't have a
Right.
normal conversation. And it's like, and I think
Mm.
I'm realizing, like, as I understand, like, how, I got away from small talk and I hated small talk. Small talk, I'm too good for small talk. But it's like, can can you just be a normal person?
Right. Right.
And it's like, can
Yeah.
you, stoop down low with the normal people?
The normals.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like say, yeah, let's talk about the weather. Let's talk about
Mm.
sports. Because it's like these people get like a sort of God complex. And I guess that is where the power comes in. It's like as soon as you start being told, you know, that what you said is brilliant, right?
Mhm.
And I'm like, I can't imagine like being told that all the time. Like that's
Right.
gotta mess with you. And then when someone
Yeah.
questions you, you're like, well, clearly this person is just dumb, right? And it's like
Huh.
that's such a dangerous space to be.
Yeah.
And it's like we need somehow to get our geniuses to like at least play human so that,
Hmm.
we can actually have a conversation with them and say like, look, like this is
Yeah.
nuts. Like what you're doing is insane.
They've got to just feel elevated into that, like, no, I'm a genius at this. I definitely know best. So we're going to do this my way, in that they all just parent everybody else. Just they're in charge.
Yeah, they parent everybody else, and then I think like it's just not a great relationship for
Yeah.
anybody. And so I guess maybe that, and I don't I don't think Bridge Livewad is a genius. Um, I think that like it's just an artistic thing and it's an artistic expression, and sometimes it's smart and sometimes it's just incoherent, but
Mm.
it's just stuff that I'm putting out there. And I don't want to say Bridge Live Water is real. It's just a thing that I put out there that
Right.
may be insightful or maybe funny, but at times too, it's just going to be like nonsensical. And that's just what Bridge does. Right. And so, but what my friends and what my family needs is John Howie.
Right.
And I think like maybe for like an Elon Musk or a Jordan Peterson or a Taika Waititi, um, I don't know. I don't know if they have that dichotomy
Hmm.
and whether there is a down to earth version of who they are. But I just think there's a danger in the label genius.
Yeah. Hmm.
There's a
Yeah.
danger. There's a danger in the label pastor. It's the same thing. It's like, is
Oh.
there a space where you're just a person and
Yeah.
people can talk to you and relate to you and be loved by
Yeah.
you as a person and not as a pastor?
I have not ever had a pastor that's as approachable as our current pastor that
Mm,
I
yeah,
love having him. um this is a ridiculous offshoot, but our dog is still a puppy. He can't
yeah.
be alone for a long time. We live like over a toll bridge from the church, and they were like, do you just want him to hang out in our office and he can chew his bone and bark in there, and then you guys don't have to go back and forth over the like. So they're just the sweetest people. They've helped us move. But like the pastor that I had growing up came down to service late, so he didn't have to talk to people. Like, he was two songs in and he left early and went to his office so he didn't have to talk to people. And he just was not someone that, I mean, approachable doesn't seem like the right word even. He was truly the man behind the curtain. um we went to a slightly smaller church and it seemed better. And then just after we left, it had gotten bigger and bigger. And they were like basically raffling off a chance to go have a golf game with this pastor. Like, uh, you should be able to call him if you want to go golf and just set a time.
Mm,
It doesn't have to be like, hey, guess what? You get to golf with so and so. And like,
yeah.
it, they're supposed to be down there. And my mom loved to go into the history of like shepherds that stood with the sheep and slept there in the pastures. And then they started using dogs, and then they started cattle ranching. And then more likely these days in bigger places that shepherds will shout from helicopters. And you see that progression with pastors as well, like
Huh.
that similarity as what Jesus called them for pastoring the sheep and shepherding the sheep. And it totally went the same way as people who used to just stay there with the sheep, and then people who are just kind of hollering out of a helicopter at them.
Wow.
Pastor drives me crazy. My kids go to a church school, and they like to call that pastor of the school and the church pastor. We don't go to that church,
Yeah.
but I'm just like, just don't, like, can you call him Reverend Kelly? Can you call him Pastor Kelly? Like, can you not? I don't call my pastor pastor. I'll call him pastor first name, pastor last name if I feel like it, but I'll also call him by his first name, which was such taboo when I was growing up. But I don't like it. I don't go in and call my dentist. Like I'll
Yeah.
call them doctor something, but it gives me such a shudder to not use somebody's name and just to call them pastor. I'm just not into it.
Well, and that's interesting too, because like we talk about like the word expert.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna do all of the political stuff today.
Oh, let's
Um,
get it out.
but like it's like I think the word expert has become such a like hot button word.
Mhm.
And I think that's the same thing where we elevate people to the level of expert. And I love this. I just read this book. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. I can't remember what it's called. But it's about like I think it's an epistemological crisis.
Ooh, okay.
Ooh, I nailed that.
Yeah,
Um
first try.
uh
Now spell it, please.
no.
No.
Um so Bertrand Russell, this is a quote, and it's like the skepticism that I advocate amounts only to this: that when the experts are agreed, the opposite opinion cannot be held to be certain. Which I'm like, okay, well, that's fair. So
Yeah.
all the experts agree. Well, then we can't say, well, the opposite of what they're saying is certain.
Mm,
So I'm like, okay, I think we can all agree with that. That
okay.
when they are not agreed, no opinion can be regarded as certain by a non-expert.
Huh.
So it's like, okay, so we've got mixed information from the experts. And it's like, you can't say, well, I side with this expert and I'm certain of it.
Okay.
It's like, okay, yep, I agree with that too. That when they all hold that no sufficient grounds for a positive outcome exist, the ordinary man would do well to suspend his judgment. So if the experts are like,
Yeah.
well, then the ordinary person should be like,
Mm.
And so I think like
Huh.
it's like, and maybe this is what it is like when we talk about geniuses, when we talk about pastors, when we talk about all these things, it's like, okay, um, let's affirm that when these people are all kind of in agreement, that it's like, okay, well, it's ridiculous for me to say, no, they're definitely wrong. Like, who am I?
Right.
Now, when they have mixed kind of thoughts on things, right? When there's kind of mixture of different things that experts are saying, I can't just pick one expert and say I 100% agree with them.
With this
That's
guy.
not
Yeah.
logical. It's like, who am I to judge one expert over another?
Hmm.
Um, and then when the experts are saying there's not a real answer, it's like, well, I do well to kind of submit to that and just be like, yeah, I'm not, I guess there's no answer, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I think so. And I think what happens with these geniuses, with these pastors, because I feel like what's happening more than anything else is like there's just cult followings.
Yes.
Like there's just these people who, podcasters. I won't name any names because this would get
Okay.
very political very fast. But there's
Yes.
podcasters that just clearly have a cult following.
Yes.
And I would say Elon Musk has a cult following too. Um,
Sure.
and it's just kind of like, okay, but is there an equivalent, you know, to that person that's saying different things? And it's like, there is. Like, there are other people who know as much
Mhm.
as he does about engineering who are saying, this is crazy town.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, okay. Okay. So, like, for me, in my opinion, right, my opinion on this whole thing is that, okay, like, we've got a guy who did not build this social media company from the ground and is coming in and is doing a bunch
Right.
of things in the name of efficiency and in the name of, striking down a lot of political stuff that he
Hmm.
disagrees with,
Yeah.
right? Without getting political,
Sure.
right? So he's done all of that. He plans on doing all of that. But like, I don't even know who's done this before. Has anybody even done this before where they came in and just did a big shakeup with the social media company and fixed everything?
No, not that I can,
Yeah.
nothing I could think of, not on this scale.
So, I mean, like, okay. So I look at this and I'm like, okay, well, I think there's just no precedence.
Hmm.
So for people to say for sure this is going to fail or to say for sure this is going to work, I think it violates what Bertrand Russell is saying.
Ah, okay. Huh.
And so I
Oh,
think
now I need to think.
it's so much like, and I think that this is like a folk tale. I used to always credit Max Lucado with this because he has it in one of his books. But
Mhm.
it's like this old man and the horse. You ever heard this story where there's an old man and he's got this horse? I'm gonna butcher this story, but I'm just gonna roll with it. Okay.
Go.
So there's an old man, he's got a horse, and everyone's like, hey, dude, like you can barely feed your son. Like you should sell the horse so
Mhm.
that you can feed your son. And he holds onto the horse anyways, even though everyone's advising him to do that. And the horse runs away.
Mm,
And everyone's like, see, like we knew this
right.
would happen. Now you can't even feed your son. And but the horse comes back with a whole bunch of other horses.
Mm.
And it's like, oh,
It's
it's a
like,
blessing. It's a
right.
blessing. You held on to that horse and you've been blessed now. And you've got all these other
Huh.
horses. And so then his son goes out and he's like breaking these horses. And his son falls off of one of the horses, breaks his leg, and everyone's like, oh, it's a curse. It's a curse. You had all these horses, but like your son went out. I mean, maybe your son
Mm,
shouldn't have been breaking horses. Maybe he's not experienced. It's a curse.
mm.
And then World War I starts up and they're drafting all these men.
Ah,
His son doesn't go to war, and everyone's like, oh, it's a
yay.
blessing. And the old man just kind of looks at them and it's like, when will you guys learn?
Mm,
And so I think that there's like, I love that tale because it's just got so much wisdom in the ways of like, why are we why are we so quick to evaluate things?
right. Yeah.
And I guess part of it is like having a certain amount of self-esteem vested in being right about things.
Mm,
And it's
mm,
like you build your whole, like it's building your house on sinking sand because it's just kind of like, well, I get a rush whenever I'm right about stuff.
mhm.
And I don't know if that's something we're conditioned to do, like people are conditioned to do, or if it's something that is just an inherent personality type. Because it's like when something bad happens to someone that I told them, if you don't do this, this will happen. There
Right.
is nothing in me that wants to say, I told you so.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's because I've seen so many people do the whole I told you so thing,
Mm.
and I can see how counterproductive it is, or if it's just something that's just not in me. But I'm like,
Oh, oh, interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, there's people that I would definitely be like, And I think it has to do with how much I necessarily care for them, or maybe how close
Yeah.
I am, that I'd be like, I mean, did tell you that that wasn't good. Maybe you'll listen next time. And that's a parenting thing as well,
I
and I try
guess, yeah.
not to do that too much. And then there's people that it just would break my heart, and just, just be
Yeah.
like, maybe to myself, I wish that whatever, it would more make me sad than like, oh, I was right about that one. It depends on my relationship to the person, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's something I think a lot of people project
Mhm.
onto me. Like
Okay.
it's like, cause like I'm honestly, I'm like, okay, look, I don't like what's going on Twitter. And people are like, what? There's nothing wrong with it. And I'm like, okay, well, if you see nothing wrong, that's because it's not happening to you and you don't
Yes.
care about the people that it is happening to.
Yeah.
And I got kind of like, oh, so if we don't see things your way, then you don't care about people. And it's like, this has nothing to do with
That
me.
ain't it. Yeah.
Like, this has nothing to do with me. But it's interesting that you would go straight there
Mm.
because I get the sense that you think that that is the only reason why someone would get angry
Mm.
is like, if you don't think the way I do, I will be angry at you because I'm better than you. And I'm like, I'm not saying I'm better than anyone. I'm
Right.
just saying like you're missing something here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't care. I don't care who wins this. I just want these people to not be hurt.
Right. Yeah.
And so I don't know. It's a hard thing to wrap my mind around. And I mean, I guess it's like whether it's like an inherent, like being an empath, is that an inherent thing or is that something you hone? Because I remember, like years ago, I'd say like 10 years ago or something like that, I was just like, I'm not empathetic enough. I need to be more empathetic.
Okay.
And I was working at it. And now I'm kind of at a point where I'm like, okay, I feel everything and I hate it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can I
And
close
it's,
that door over a little bit? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I'm like, I need to learn that. And I don't know how to learn that. And I feel like it's like I'm always on the verge of just being overwhelmed. Like, it's just
Mhm.
like, I need to shut everything off. I'm not
Yeah.
healthy enough to handle things. And I'm like thinking, that's not normal, is it?
I don't, I think it's common, but not normal. Like a lot of
Mm,
us with the compassion fatigue,
yeah,
we get a lot. And I think that, yeah, it's commonplace, but I think it's hard to set up the boundary of, like, there was just that shooting.
yeah,
There's all the time, but there was,
yeah,
shooting recently, and it's hard to not just go, ugh, another one, and that sucks. Or I,
yeah,
I either have to go like, that sucks, and say a little prayer and pray over my kids when they go into school and move along, or I'm gonna sit and be upset about this for days. And me sitting in alone doesn't help them, and it doesn't help me, but that it's one, or I don't know what the proper, response is. It's one or the other. And
yeah,
yeah, the fatigue of just caring so much about everything. It's a lot. It's
yeah,
exhausting. And I've definitely had to kind of put like, all right, these things are this far out from me and my personal cluster of people. So I have to reserve, all this compassion energy for things that are a little bit closer. Like my feelings are there. I feel bad, but there's, and I don't see it necessarily so much as protecting me, but if I'm drained, I can't care when my kid is sick. I can't care
yeah.
when they're bullied. I can't care when my dad's getting surgery. Like, it's it's reserves, setting up those reserves for those that are closer.
Well, and that's kind of that dichotomy again, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like there's kind of like this superhero that goes out there and looks and feels the pain of that community that was
Mm.
attacked and will challenge people online and say, you don't sound like Jesus right now.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
And but it's like your family, like at first and foremost, if that's taken away from what you
Yeah.
can give to your family, it's like, well, you're outside of your, it's like Superman Clark Kent. It's like Clark
Mm.
Kent. You need enough Clark Kent
Yeah.
to take care of your family. And I think that's what I'm learning. And it's like,
Mm,
and it's not, as far as I can tell, what I'm doing isn't just performative. And I think that's
yeah.
something that people will accuse me of all the time,
Mm,
is like, oh, you're just saying this so people think you're compassionate. I'm like, no, I'm saying this because it bothers me that these people are hurting.
yeah.
And it bothers me that you don't care, or you don't seem to care that these people are hurting.
Right.
And I guess, and I've seen a couple shows, like I'm watching Handmaid's Tale,
Hmm.
and
That's an
also it is, yeah,
exhausting show to watch.
and Peaky Blinders,
That's
and
good.
um I think too, back to Lost.
Mm,
Lost in particular is the one that I'm thinking about right now. I haven't watched Lost in a while, but there was something in one of the shows I was watching that reminded me of this moment in Lost where there's like this guy who killed, like, I want to say like five, let's say 5 to 10 people, but he
mhm.
killed 5 to 10 people because he wanted to protect his child.
Yes.
And I'm like, huh, like what in our humanity does that?
Hmm.
And it's like, and I understand I care more about my child. And I think of war in the same way too, where it's just kind of like, we need to kill all these guys. Otherwise, they're going to kill our guys.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so now we're assigning value to
To
lives and
lives.
saying, well,
Hmm.
my child's life is worth 5 to 10 of these guys' lives.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of what's happening, socially. When an event like this happens, there's a certain amount of people that are like,
Hmm.
yeah, I could say I care about this community, but I don't want to say that I care too much about this community, because I'm scared that if I, am kind to this community and I
Hmm.
affirm this community, there's a chance that my child could become part of that community.
Okay. Yeah.
And so they're willing to allow this kind of stuff to continue to protect their children.
Hmm.
But it's like, okay, but
Yeah.
like, you don't know, like, opening the door of possibility to your child is different from, you know, grooming.
Yeah.
Like, we're
Right.
saying, like, look, I'm just going to accept you as you are, like, whatever
Yes.
that is.
Right.
And to
Oh,
say that,
yeah.
no, I'm going to raise my kids and tell them this is not a possibility. And
Hmm.
when you raise your kids telling them this is not a possibility, your kids will be those people that are going around telling people this is not a possibility,
Right.
which alienates,
Yeah.
the people for which they're like, I don't fit.
Yeah.
Like, who I am, what I want doesn't fit.
Yeah.
So what do I do with that? Like, where do I go with that? Should I
Hmm.
just not exist? And that's
Right.
where all this is going. It's like,
Right.
these people should not exist. That's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
And so, out of fear of my child becoming the other, I am going to not give any pushback
Mm.
on this narrative. And so I think that, like, it's out of compassion for their children that all of this is like, just, we're not gonna
Yeah.
mourn with you. And it's like, and it's the
Ugh.
same mentality. Like, it's the
Hate it.
same thing where it's
Yeah.
like, my child's life is worth more than these 5 to 10 people.
Ugh. Nope. I hate it all.
I know.
I, yeah. Uh, no, I want living kids who are happy and
Mhm.
accepted and just who they are and honest with themselves and honest with
Yeah.
each other and just to be safe. I just want safe kids.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's a lot to walk through too. Like, kind of a religious upbringing tells you a
Mm,
lot about, like, denying your body. Um,
yeah.
and that's something I think, like, I have been learning so much about, like, what, your emotions are diagnostic. They're not Emotions are data, not
Yes.
directives.
Yes.
But it's like, okay, but like for emotions to be data, you actually need to sit with them.
Mhm.
And you need to stop just saying the heart is deceitful above all else. I'm going to ignore that. Right.
Right.
It's like, okay, hold on though. No, no, no. You need to dig deep. You need to dig deep and figure out where these emotions are coming from.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then it's like, well, let's figure out what's going wrong here. But I think like kind of our religious upbringing says, no, no, no. You need to fit this mold.
Mhm.
This is what you need to be. This is how you need to do it. This is what, your gender, what the expectations of your gender is.
Right.
And I'm like, and I don't know. I don't think that the expectations of gender actually fit anyone.
Mhm.
And it's like, if we could just figure out how to just let people be people and work their own thing out,
Right. Like
I
do what
think
you're
we'd
good
be
at and
so
what you
much
enjoy.
healthier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. And it's like, and I think that there's a lot to be learned from each other,
Mhm.
but like there's just no conversation between the sides
Yeah.
because it's like everyone's kind of indoctrinated with, whatever label they've been given.
I mean, how much of our large scale problem is just people repressing something of who they're supposed to be or what's
Mm.
just naturally in them? Anything from like the fidgety kid who's like,
Yeah.
I got a big personality and I got to move and
Yeah.
I got to do stuff, like to people who are struggling with being honest about their identities
Yeah.
and who they want to love and stuff like that. That
Yeah.
just the constant having to mask and fake has to be exhausting. But like whether it's big or
Masking.
little, that's that's all that repression. It's not healthy, like
Is
just
there
don't be
like,
violent, just be good.
are there legit people that don't mask?
Babies. That's it.
Yeah. Cause I was thinking today about like when I was a kid, I had this huge smile
Hmm.
and there's photos of it. And I used to just cringe so much seeing that smile
Yeah.
because at some point in my life, I was bullied out of smiling like that.
Hmm.
And there's this guy on Twitter, and he's got the most like huge grin ever. He now grew a beard. He's got this
Yeah.
red beard. He's got this red hair, and he's a comedian. And his smile, it's like, it's that kid smile. And I'm like, he
Hmm.
kept it. Like, good for
Yeah.
him. And it's like, I don't know why. Like, and I think I would be interested to find out if there were like some kind of statistics that showed how many of those children with the big cheesy grins
Yeah.
were bullied out of it by their parents because their parents were like, ah, your friends, like the kids at school are going to bully you. So I'm going to
Hmm.
pre-bully you before you get
Hmm.
bullied. And it's just like something as simple as that. Now, we can cover a whole bunch of things that
Yeah.
people will say biblically, this is what it says. But it's like, I just think like, it's like, why can't we just let people work their own things out and just love them as they see themselves, as long as they're not going around hurting other people?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like, I feel like Christianity or evangelicalism kind of looks at things and says, like we're more concerned about the smile
Mhm.
than we are about the fact that you hit that other kid.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
like, why? And they're just like, well, there's not forgiveness. There's no forgiveness for that kind of smile.
Mm.
But there is forgiveness for hitting the other kid.
Yeah.
And they always will side with the bully and will
Mm.
always want to restore the bully and allow the bully to continue to
Ugh.
bully the kid for smiling. And
Yes.
I'm like, why are we like this? And I get it, like saying, well, we're going to cancel this person because they bullied the kid that was smiling. It's like, okay, I get that at some point you guys want restoration. And I think
Right.
that's something that Christianity could offer the world is a way of actually restoring people that do horrible things. But it's like we're too
Mhm.
quick to that. And I guess there's no, can we slow down to the pace of people's healing? Can we slow down to the pace of
Oh,
people's mourning? and
Oh,
just
yeah.
allow the process, because everything is like, if you really believe in God, we all have a blueprint in us. We all have a natural way of being.
Mm.
So can we let that process happen and trust God instead of trying to enforce all these
Mm.
structures and saying this is how you're supposed to be?
Yeah. It's heavy. This is a lot. For like I'm gonna need to think and come back for part two or something. Like that's just there's so much today. You brought a lot to the Thanksgiving table, the American
Oh
Thanksgiving.
yeah, yeah. American Thanksgiving. Yeah, we
That's
did
right.
Thanksgiving 6 weeks ago.
I think
Someone on
that's
Twitter did. I didn't
so
even like.
cool.
Yeah, I didn't even look it up. I actually had a friend in Marco
Mhm.
Polo that's like, does Canada have something like Thanksgiving? I'm like,
We have Thanksgiving.
yeah, yeah,
I like that it's early because then I could, if I was Canadian, be Christmassy all through November without people giving me crap about Thanksgiving.
yeah. Well, we have a Remembrance Day on November 11th, and so
Okay.
like people are like, oh, well, respect the veterans by not putting your Christmas decorations up,
Are
and
they coming into your house and feeling disrespected, John? Like,
yeah, I was like, well, the veterans do hate Christmas, so such a
yeah.
bad joke. I'm sorry.
I cackled.
The
I'm
whole
taking
like
you
okay,
off
the
of the
whole
thing,
war
but
thing is like a whole thing because I'm like, and again, yeah, political, but I I asked a question in a very kind of progressive group.
mhm.
I asked, I don't know how I feel about veterans and war.
Okay.
People are always like, that guy wears a uniform, he's a hero, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what they did
Mhm.
over in Afghanistan. How many children did they kill? Right? Like I
Mhm.
don't know. And I'm like,
Yeah,
and it's a huge thing. Like I couldn't do their job,
sure.
but I'm like, I don't know how I feel about their job or what the, initiative is. And
Mhm.
people always say freedom comes at a price. And it's like, so we sent people over to Afghanistan so that we could have freedom. Like I don't
Right.
make the connection.
Um, yeah, I have such a weird feeling on veterans and war and
Yeah.
being patriotic. I'm glad that word came to me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just the idea that the church I grew up in, we always did a big summer, I guess, a big summer musical, a big summer show, Celebrate America. And it was great. And it was the founding of the
Yeah.
country and freedom. And it was all whitewashed history. But there was so much support for the veterans. During like the big act break number was, thanking everybody from the different, like
Yeah.
branches of the military. And my mom's big concern, and it passed to me, is like, well, how many of these people are we like kind of sending this message that because you served and we do thank you for that, especially in the world wars and things like that, that we're just because you signed up, you've done enough and that's salvation for you. Like you
Huh.
can be a hero, but like we equated so much patriotism and Christianity together. And I think Americans do that in general. Like not everybody in the military is a good Christian. Not everybody is a good
Yeah.
Christian wants to have this violent um, history and this violent side of themselves to go off and do these things. And I have many veterans in my family and friends, and
Hmm.
they've made these decisions, and I appreciate it. My husband's side of the family has some great, amazing war stories, but the it's murky at best to me because I'm not a historian, but I'd love to go into like, well, how many of these wars needed to be fought in the first place?
Well, it's
What
interesting
came
too.
out of them? Like, was it worth
Yeah.
it? And we just don't know. We can't turn the clock
Yeah.
back, but
In the book Jesus Untangled,
mm,
Keith Giles argues none of them.
none.
There's no such thing as a just war. And he's like, for example, World War II, people always want to use World War II, and it's like we
Of
had
course.
to. And he's like, well, the German military was fueled by, and I can't remember what oil company it is. I probably
Mhm.
shouldn't say it anyways. But there was a specific oil company. I think it might have been Standard Oil. There, I
Okay.
said it. I think it was Standard
He
Oil.
said it, not me.
Yeah.
Don't sue me.
And they supplied jet fuel to
Mm,
the German military, and that basically fueled everything they did,
mm,
literally. And he's like, what would have happened if they just cut their fuel supply? And I was
Uh,
like, that's fascinating.
uh,
But so yeah, so anyways, I came through like in a Facebook group. I started asking these questions, and it was surprising to me how many progressives were still very like pro-military.
sure.
But in the end, I arrived at this conclusion, and I'm like, freedom is bought at a price, but that price is not just our soldiers.
Yeah.
The price is our soldiers, their soldiers, their
Right.
civilians, our civilians.
Yeah.
And it's like everybody suffers from war
Mm.
because you get these people that come back to your country that are not the same. And it's like there's possibility of domestic abuse or losing
Sure.
someone, you know, because they just can't handle life anymore,
Yeah.
right? And there's a lot there. And so it's like it's a messy, messy thing. And so I always have mixed feelings about it. And I'm not even sure how to say, well, thank you, because I don't know what they
Yeah.
did. And so,
Yeah.
but enough with the heaviness. I'm
Yes.
sorry. We
Yeah.
were
No, that's
very
fine.
heavy and very cerebral for a bit here. Oh, by the way, one of my favorite things I learned too in
Yeah.
my other podcast, The Wax Museum, I did an episode with Carl and Laura Forehand, and they talk about cerebral listening versus contemplative listening. And it's like cerebral listening is where I listen to you,
Mhm.
but I want to feel smart the whole time. And
Okay.
so I'm like, the only questions I'm asking are ones to like make me look smart.
Mhm.
It's all very, but it's like, but contemplative listening is where you're actually trying to get the person to fully flush out their thoughts.
Okay.
And you're just asking for more understanding. I was like, that's really cool.
Huh.
All
I
right.
like that.
Something light.
Something
Mariah
like
Carey. Mariah Carey,
she's thawing.
she like, okay, so she tried to trademark the term Queen of Christmas.
Okay.
But here's the thing. She only has one Christmas song, and it's not that great.
Again, he said it, not me. She's got a whole album, possibly two. I grew up on these.
Hmm.
Um, I Miss You Most at Christmas Time is a good one. Can't think of any others that might even possibly
I
be
think you made that
originals.
song up.
I did not. I will send it to you. I don't have access to the show notes, but I'm going to put them in anyway. Oh my gosh. If I wasn't sick, I'd sing a few bars and we'd get kicked off. But she does an Oh Holy Night. She does a Jesus, What a Wonderful Child. I know those are not originals, but
Okay, like, okay,
it's
so like,
played.
what do
It's
you think
played,
the
but
okay, like, so I still feel like okay, so maybe One Hit Wonder is an excessively
okay.
Jimmy kind of take on that.
Yeah.
But you think that there would be someone who's more well-rounded to be the Queen of Christmas? Like Amy Grant, even. Like she's got, I think, a few more songs, although I don't know if Amy Grant's Christmas is as big
She's
in
got,
secular circles.
yeah, I know she's got like three Christmas records.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, if someone were to be like, "Who is the Queen of Christmas?" I'd be like, "Oh, Candace Cameron Bure. She's in all those Christmas like Hallmark movies. That's got to be her, right?" And then no, it's Mariah Carey. Um,
Ew.
hmm,
But
ew,
okay.
but yeah, I don't watch them. I'm
Oh,
not
okay.
into it.
I know
Um,
people who are though, and I need to get better at letting people enjoy things.
right. Like let them enjoy it, whatever.
Yeah.
I gave it a shot. I just can't do the I've tried. I can't do the Hallmark whatever. It's just not interesting enough for me.
And
And I
no
think that's blackness in my soul that I need, like more shattered glass and explosions to be interested in something.
well
But the Queen
and
of
I
Christmas.
mean and no shade to people who like Mariah Carey too.
Sure.
I just it seemed very like presumptuous to say I want to trademark Queen of Christmas. I'm like
Huh.
it's like another
Yeah.
genius thing going on there, I think.
I mean, I don't think
Um,
I've ever heard her called the Queen of Christmas. So it's not
yeah.
like she's been called this all the time and it's time for her to take that crown. I don't think so. I know she tours and sings it.
Well, it's kind of like a certain guy trying to coin the phrase "you're fired" as a trademark.
Did that? He didn't get that right. I
No.
can't imagine. Okay. I,
Could you
I
imagine?
used to
It's
watch
like how
that.
much would you have to pay every time you fire somebody? Like
Like you
five
no
dollars.
longer work here. Like, yeah, just you can't actually fire anybody anymore. I forgot that that happened. Oh,
The
the absurdity.
Voldemort. Um, all right. Okay, so this was like I don't even know where I got this from,
Okay.
but it's like you can't cling to any blame that you may be using to make sense of the story of your life. So when we're talking about like
Mm,
what makes sense in my story of my life is this person ruined my career.
mhm.
And I'm okay now, but this person ruined my career.
Okay.
It's actually a true story. But anyways, um it can become a way to justify why you are the way you are. And in doing so, it can justify you staying the same.
Mm-hmm. I any I feel like this goes around a lot when like people talk about the Enneagram or Myers-Briggs that it once it's well I'm this way because then it turns into and I'm this way forever and that's
Yeah.
just it.
Yeah.
And I think that was a valuable part even in when I was in therapy of coming up with reasons why and then confronting, do I stay that way? Like now
Yeah.
that I know where it comes from, can
Yeah.
I move past that? Can I do something else?
Yeah.
Can I grow differently? Um, and yeah, once you assign, nope, this is how it is, and this is why, everything can change. I mean, unless it's a physical whatever, but I was about to go off into something weird, but that would be perfectly us. But yeah, no, once you start assigning this is why, and then it sticks. That I like that. That makes sense.
Yeah. And I mean, there's been a series of unfortunate events that led me to where I am here. And
Sure.
I think honestly, anybody who has hurt me, I really think that they thought they were doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at least that's the story I tell myself. It's like they thought they were doing the right thing. And it's like, okay,
Sure.
right. And so it's like I can forgive them for that. And
I
I'm
mean,
like, I'm okay now, anyways. And it's like
right.
so long ago, like, who cares anymore?
The percentage of people that have to be actually out to get you or to get anyone and do something mean or harmful just because they want to be mean or harmful has to be small. I mean, I think
Yeah.
most people have at least good intentions or think that they're doing it for a good intention and have
Yeah.
drastically misread it. But
Yeah.
yeah, the amount of people that are going to actually go and be like, I'm going to go be mean and ruin this and sabotage, that has to be smaller than we think. I would hope.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm a person who generally gives people the benefit of the doubt.
Mm.
And even, like the worst person I can think of, right now, public figure
Mm-hmm.
that I won't name.
Okay.
I really believe that that person grew up with a father that was impossible to please.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's his whole existence is like, okay, daddy, you proud of me now? Hey,
Right.
daddy, are you proud
Right.
of me now?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, like I feel sad for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'm very blessed that I'm not in that position. Like, I'm
Right.
like, I don't know if I need to impress anybody. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
do what I do. And I'm so fortunate that I've come to this point, and I don't think it makes me a better person.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel very fortunate. And I mean, I think a lot of things, it's just kind of like, well, I'm fortunate that I already have this temperament to be the way I am, but I've also worked at being a better version of that. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
continue to work on being a better version of
Yeah.
that. Like, I think that's kind of it.
Yeah.
And I think there's other people that just don't know how to be that. And I'm sure there's people
Mm.
that know how to be better than I am too. So many people I look up to.
So many, but better, but maybe not a better you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think that's what's helpful too is like when we can actually look at our own like uniqueness, there's no comparison. Like I'm
Mm.
just like, yeah, I don't think there's anybody that does exactly what I do, so I don't really compare myself to anyone else.
Yeah,
So I don't think too
can't.
much about it.
Good.
A industrial hygienist, musician, podcaster.
You're the only one with that bio that I know of.
Maybe there's another one. I don't know. But, all right. So I'm really like the ADD master list is a lot of old stuff now.
Okay.
I guess I haven't been adding stuff to it that much, but it actually means maybe we'll get to the bottom of it one day. Um,
Someday.
but Rob Bell, I remember he said that, we talk a lot about like within Christianity about surrendering yourself.
Mhm.
But he proposed that we need to learn to surrender others.
Mm.
And so there's people in your life, like it's like, okay, so there are things that I can't control in my own life. And I need to surrender and just surrender to the divine and say, okay, well, I can't control this. Lord, you're in control.
Mm.
And it's like, so that's something we learn to do for ourselves. But to do that for others is a whole different thing. And
Yeah.
I need to be preached at about this. Maybe
Huh.
this is the answer to my empathy problem. It's like, no, 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 no. Whenever I'm overwhelmed, just like I would be overwhelmed for my own situation, and I just pray, let go, and pray.
Mm.
For other people's situations now, it's like just let go and pray.
Yeah. Oh, that's so rough though. It's so hard to do. We need to be in control. I automatically see my kids when it's like, no, just let go and pray for them. No, no, I have to control it and keep them safe.
Well, and parenting too is like a series of steps of letting go, right? Because
Hmm.
it's like as they get older, it's like I know like, the first 3 or 4 years, you're just definitely on like suicide watch the whole time.
The
It's
whole
like,
time.
oh, there's that corner of that cabinet.
Yep.
Gotta watch that,
Yep.
right? Um, but it's like as they get older, you have to let go more and more and just be like, okay, well, I don't know where my 18-year-old is right now, but that's okay. Like
Yep.
he's a big boy.
It's got to be all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh yeah, so another concept I was thinking about too is like when your opponent's house is burning down, and this is metaphoric, not for
Sure.
real. But it's like when your opponent's house is burning down, I think there's a lot of times where you see your opponent reaping the consequences of their own actions.
Mm.
And if we're actually going to be competitive against our opponents, I would say. Because I think, yeah, I was thinking of this more in a competitive mindset. And I think the moment you start putting gasoline on the fire, like that's another thing I hate to watch is like when people are
Okay.
like, oh yeah, let's burn it more, let's burn it more. And it's like, okay, now I'm bothered by you again.
Okay.
Like I
Yeah, the
could see
pile
your
on.
ego kind of chiming in and you're enjoying this a bit too much.
Hmm.
But it's like if you just let them do their thing, let them
Right.
figure it out themselves. I don't know. Honestly, I would say if your opponent's house is burning down, they probably don't want your help anyways.
I think that,
Yeah.
or at least
And
that's what I tell myself when I don't help. It's like they wouldn't want me to help them anyway. Or would I go help them to be like, look how good I am? Like, I don't even like this person and I'm gonna go help, motive.
Oh man, I think was it Benjamin Franklin? It might have been Benjamin Franklin, but he said that like if you want someone to be on your side, let them do a favor for you.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And I think it's the Benjamin Franklin rule. I might be misquoting, but it's like so it's like this idea that like ask somebody for help, and
Hmm.
then you'll be friends for life. But if you help someone else, they feel like they're indebted to you, and there's actually not the right kind of relationship to be friends.
Okay.
But it's like if you flip it and you say, hey, can you help me with this? I'm like, that's a good way to manipulate people. So if you
That
want to
too.
manipulate people, coolio. Jay Warner Wallace, I don't know how long ago this was, but he was on a podcast called the Reverse Podcast, and he said nonfiction writing is like being in a covered band. I thought that was
Oh,
really interesting. So it's like if I'm an
okay.
author and instead of writing a novel of stuff I made up, I'm
Okay.
actually writing based
You're
on facts.
recounting. Okay.
Yeah. Then I'm basically the
Ah.
equivalent of a cover band, which for me as a creative, I'm just like, oh, I don't like cover bands. I don't want to
Oh
be in a
man.
cover band. I want to be an original artist.
Yeah.
And so it makes me like, because I'm more prone to read nonfiction, because I'm like, I want to
Mm.
learn
Hmm.
something, right?
Yeah.
But it's like fiction is next level. I'm learning. I've had this discussion with people several times now.
Interesting. Okay.
Is like fiction is next level because these people aren't just writing something that they already saw. They're writing
Mm.
something that's actually created from their mind. And a lot
That's
of
good.
times too, you can become more metaphoric in your language and open up new portals of understanding. Ooh, I
Mm.
like how psychedelic
I
that
like
sounded.
that. I don't read a ton of fiction, but I read two huge fiction books in the past like 6 or 8 weeks, and
Oh
they've
yeah.
both been great. Like I finally read Stephen King's It, and it
Oh,
was
okay.
could have done with some editing for sure, but it was great. And then I read his book 11/22/53, I think, and it's not creepy, but it was the best. I loved it. It was such a good building of this world and this story, and it never got boring. And um, it just a lot of really interesting elements. It wasn't what I expected at all, and I loved it. And I was like, okay, maybe I do like fiction.
Hmm.
Maybe I'm just reading the wrong kind of fiction. Like maybe this was more interesting, but it was fascinating. I loved it. But for the most part, I tend to do just I don't know what they're like memoirs and essays and stuff like that. I really go for nonfiction more. But the idea that it's like the cover band or it's not like creative writing, I don't like that. I mean,
It's
it
a
is a
really
recount.
interesting way of looking at it, anyways, because like I like for me, it's like I need to be challenged
Okay.
to take
Yeah.
fiction more seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think we're out of time.
I think it's been a bit.
It's
All
been a
right.
bit. Also, my doorbell rang, but I'm assuming that's Amazon. So,
Probably.
but so much fun. I am learning to slow down on my days off.
Good.
And so I'm trying to do kind of like every second week, or I guess it's every fourth week.
Okay.
I guess every podcast is just going to be like once a month, but whatever.
It's all right. We'll have a
I
lot to
got to
talk
do
about.
what I got to do. I got to,
Mhm.
it's like it's slowing down to a level where it's like I can actually process, my thoughts and
Mhm.
process my emotions.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I need to be right now. And
Good.
it's like it's so easy to adopt a pace that's faster than that. And so that's been what I'm learning right now.
Yeah, even if it's just for now, it doesn't have to be that speed forever.
Yeah. But
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you. I always have a good
Always
time.
a joy.
All right,
And thank you, listener, for listening.
listener. Just one.
Bye.
Air smudge.